And doctor, did you learn how things became difficult from the records in your interview of her?
I did, both of those, and from, I guess you could say the records, because a number of people had talked about that, including her husband, Patrick, and I also got some of that information from him as well during the collateral interview.
And what did you learn?
What was happening toward the end of his 12-week paternity leave is that she was getting more anxious when she started in mid-October taking the Zoloft. She immediately began to have some difficulty. The anxiety did not get better. In fact, it got worse. There were some symptoms of depression. She immediately started having some really difficult insomnia. And felt a lot of stress and so on. And so in October and moving into November, she had hoped to return to work and planned to return to work, but it was not going to work out for her because her symptoms were really difficult. So in the middle of November, she texted her mother-in-law, Sue Clancy, who was at work, also a nurse, and she was in the emergency room at South Shore Hospital. She felt unwell. She was having problems sleeping. She had a racing heart. She had lost some of her appetite. Continuing into November, she was struggling with anxiety, severe insomnia, palpitations. She was just having a lot of difficulty with the thought of leaving the baby, erasing thoughts, feeling overwhelmed, and things like that. So moving further into November, into late November, she was just having real difficulty with sleep disruption, and she had concerns all along, starting in mid-October, about the impact of the medications. It was her thought that the medications were giving her some of these adverse reactions because it was really difficult for her to look at this and say, I wanted to get some improvement in the anxiety, and I did not. Instead, it got worse. And so late in November, she was still having a lot of trouble sleeping. She thought that she was close to what she called the end of her rope. She was feeling off and disconnected and sort of like a zombie, and she began to report panic symptoms, concerns about being addicted or dependent on the benzodiazepines, so kind of disoriented and forgetful and disconnected from her body. So she was having a lot of difficulty with what she thought were the medication that was resulting in this kind of impact. And then into December, it was not getting better.
And sir, if I could just interrupt you.
Yes.
On your PowerPoint here, are we still on number 3 here, or have we moved on?
I don't know as he finished his answer.
Well, she's coming focus.
Are we still on number 3, or have we moved on?
We're still on number 2,
okay.
But I'm also slipping in a little bit of number 3 as I answer number 2.
Okay. And if you could please continue describing what was happening in December of 2022.
Yes. Around this time, late November, early December, she began to experience what she called horrible, intrusive thoughts. And those thoughts were about harming herself, potentially. And as she continued to experience these kinds of thoughts later into December and January, they would occasionally be about harming the children. But for the most part, particularly early on, these were thoughts about possible suicide and harming herself. And the way she described it is these thoughts would just pop into my head, and they included things like, your brain is damaged, you need to kill yourself. Now, the way she described these is they were not auditory hallucinations. Instead, they were her own thoughts. They were intrusive and unwelcome, but they were not auditory hallucinations. And that's important because if she had been hearing a voice like you're hearing my voice right now, it comes from outside of your head. And that's a different kind of a symptom than having thoughts, even unwelcome and intrusive thoughts that are in your head. If it's coming from outside, that is very likely a psychotic symptom. And if it's a psychotic symptom, then that has different implications for what's wrong with you, as opposed to something that is unwelcome and intrusive, but inside your own head.
And doctor, the way she described these thoughts that she was having in December about harming herself, in the medical records and in her conversations with you, she described those as unwelcome but internal thoughts, correct?
Yes, that's right. It was important because of what I just said that I asked her the question, when you were experiencing these thoughts, were they like your own thoughts or were they like auditory hallucinations? And she said they were like my own thoughts. And she made it clear that they were unwelcome and intrusive, but they were like my own thoughts. And she didn't get to talking about experiencing auditory hallucinations, as I will talk about a little bit later, until January 24th. And so she continued to have real difficulty with various kinds of problems. She had lost about 15 pounds, not intending to. She was having tremors and sweating and GI symptoms and sadness, severe depression, that sort of thing, as she described it. Feeling numb and zombie-like were her words, again in December. And then by middle December, it was getting very difficult for her as she talked about it. Her sleep was getting a little bit better, but she was continuing to have significant symptoms of depression, things like hopelessness and the loss of capacity for pleasure and things like that. She described her experience on December 15th of 2022 as one of her worst days. She went to, her husband took her to Mass General that day, and she did not stay very long, but it was one of those things that was really difficult. The symptoms were, as she saw it, pretty bad. And then on December 20th, she went to a hospital called Women and Infants in Rhode Island, and they had a day program for postpartum individuals having difficulties. And they said that they weren't going to take her, that she didn't meet their criteria for the postpartum program. Generally, that was because they said that she looked like she was having general anxiety symptoms and depressive disorders, but not so much the postpartum necessarily. And
doctor, if I could just stop you.
Yes.